The invitation arrived on a Thursday afternoon, slid across the granite kitchen island like it was just another Amazon package. Gold embossed, heavy, the kind of thing that made a statement just by existing. I picked it up and ran my thumb along the edge. My name wasn't on it, just hers. Dana Caldwell plus guest. She didn't even wait for me to ask. It's a corporate thing, she said, barely glancing up from her phone. I'm going with Warren, my boss. It's optics. Don't make it weird. Then a smirk, like she was doing me a favor. You hate these things anyway. I didn't say anything. Didn't ask why the guest wasn't her husband. I just nodded, set the invite back down, and walked over to the sink like I was rinsing a cup, like I gave a damn about a little dried coffee. She kissed my cheek on her way out of the kitchen, never looked at me, and resumed texting, her acrylic nails clacking rapid fire against the screen. The smell of the envelope lingered. Chanel No. 5, her power scent.
Subtle enough to pass off as elegance. Strong enough to burn. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon I didn't want and called someone I hadn't spoken to in 9 years. Davis Heller. He owed me a favor once upon a time. Something involving his divorce, 3 forged expense reports, and a very creative quarterly audit. He picked up on the second ring. You calling me from the dead? He said. I need you to make me the reason this event exists, I replied. He laughed. That's cryptic. I'm not feeling poetic, Davis. Can you do it or not? Pause. A breath. I could practically hear him leaning back in his leather chair, calculator mind doing the math. Depends what you want to say. I didn't have the words yet, just the vision. Dana, in her floor-length illusion of loyalty, playing trophy to a man who signs her bonuses and calls her killer, her pretending it's all professional. Me, nowhere. Erased. You can tell a man he's loved. You can tell a man he's appreciated. You can even tell him he's respected, but if you tell him he's irrelevant, without saying a word, that stays. And that's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to stop her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to confront her, yell, cry, or follow her around like some Lifetime movie sap. I was going to stay invisible until the one moment she needed me to be gone. And instead, I'd be the only one in the room that mattered. By the way, if you've read this far, do me a small favor. Subscribe. I know over 90% of you read these without following, but every single one helps this team do what we do best, turn whispers into detonations. And I promise, it only gets better from here. The thing about Dana was she always played for the spotlight. Her parents were theater people. She grew up reciting monologues in the mirror, learned how to cry on cue and flirt with her own reflection before she ever learned math. Every event was her stage. Every man was either an audience or a prop. When she got the job at Renshaw and Bell, she called it her second act, as if marrying me had been the first. I didn't mind. At first, she wanted her career back. I supported that. We'd move cities for it, cut expenses. I even helped her prep for her first investor meeting when her team lead got food poisoning. But somewhere in the shuffle, I stopped being her partner and started being her placeholder. She started coming home late. Blamed traffic, networking, team dinners, started using terms like executive presence and boardroom dynamics. And Warren, he became a character in every anecdote, and Warren says I'm too humble. Warren thinks I should go for the VP track. Warren invited me to the Birkdale retreat. He said it's just strategy, not a couples thing. I stopped asking questions around the time she started locking her phone, not because I stopped caring, but because I realized caring just gave her more weapons. When the awards were announced, some overhyped black tie gala to honor excellence in social finance, I assumed we'd go together. She mentioned it 3 weeks before, right after a Pilates class. I think we'll be seated with the R&D crowd. Should be fun. Then silence, until the envelope. And Warren, her real +1. I Googled the awards. Sponsorship tiers were listed right on the site. Bronze, silver, gold, then something new, title patron, just one slot, unnamed, donation undisclosed. I asked Davis how much it would take to fill it. He whistled. High 6 figures, maybe 7 if you want naming rights. I want a name announced, mine, but not until the night of. He laughed. Damn, you're playing this close. You have no idea. I routed the money through a donor-advised fund registered in Delaware, made up a name, Grant Brook,
Sounded like a hedge fund and a retirement community at once. Clean, impersonal. I had an LLC spun up in 2 hours. The wire cleared in 3 days. I told Davis to put the foundation on the banner. Grant Brook Endowment Fund, but no tagline, no explanation, just the name. He did one better. Want me to make it the presenting sponsor? I smiled into the phone. Why not? Because if Dana wanted a man to stand next to her in the lights, to be her accessory, she could have him. I'd just be the one holding the switch that turned them all on. The first rule of disappearing in plain sight is to understand exactly what people see when they look through you. And Dana, she saw ambition in heels, a curated image, and a man who'd gotten too comfortable being supportive. She saw a husband, functionally, but not someone who belonged in her rising world. The irony was, her world was being held together by duct tape and IOUs. The nonprofit hosting the awards, Alara Future Trust, had a glossy website and a board full of LinkedIn darlings. But dig 2 clicks deeper into the Form 990s and buried donation logs, and it was a different story. I knew their director, Sarah Kemp, from a strategy retreat years ago. She was brilliant, overworked, terrified of losing funding, and she remembered me. Julian, she said when I called from a number that didn't trace back to me, you disappeared. I'm better at background roles, I replied. She laughed nervously. So this call's not social, is it? No, I said. It's transactional. I offered a commitment through Grant Brook, $600,000 in phased support over 12 months, contingent on the award gala's public program recognizing the fund as their new presenting sponsor, and on one condition, that my identity remained confidential until the night of the event. Sarah hesitated. You're not trying to buy something political, are you? No, I said. I'm just tired of people pretending I'm not in the room. She didn't ask for more. In parallel, I had branding materials sent to their marketing team. Elegant, minimal, navy and silver. Quiet strength, the design lead said. You sure you don't want a mission statement under the name? No statement, I told her. The name is enough. Meanwhile, I rehearsed the moment in my head like a conductor preparing for one final crescendo. I imagined the spotlight, the announcement, Dana's eyes shifting, the half second it would take for the pieces to click. I didn't want an outburst. I didn't even want public drama, just the stillness of her mask breaking while everyone watched. The trick wasn't rage, it was placement. Make yourself unavoidable, then say nothing at all. That's how you win the stage she built for someone else. I watched Dana over the next 2 weeks as she rehearsed her own spectacle. The dress fittings, the meetings with Warren that went later than necessary, the way she lingered in the mirror before leaving the house, staring at herself like a painting that only made sense under gallery lighting. She didn't ask if I had plans that night. She didn't suggest we coordinate schedules. She was already somewhere else in her mind, already the star. I let her go, silently. At night, when she was asleep beside me, face turned away, I'd sit up and review the logistics on my tablet. Timeline, seating chart, my access points, my reserved balcony seat confirmed and hidden under a shell alias K. Templeton, short for my late mother, the only person who ever taught me how to wear silence like armor. I got the RSVP confirmation. I'd be in row B, upper deck, balcony right, direct line of sight to the stage, and just above where the red carpet photos would be processed live. I didn't tell a soul, not my brother, not my friends, not even my assistant who handled the bulk of my consulting work while I ghost managed this entire affair. The night before the gala, Dana came home late. Again. Smelled like champagne and cologne that wasn't mine. She dropped her bag by the door and kicked off her heels like she was casting off a burden. I sat at the dining table, not speaking. She barely glanced at me. You're not still sulking, are you? I didn't answer. She pulled her earrings off and tossed them onto a napkin. Look, I know how this looks, but it's not personal. I almost laughed at that. Not personal. The moment she decided to erase me from her professional life, to parade around with Warren, like I was just some logistical obstacle, she made it deeply personal. You could have just said you wanted to go alone, I said. She rolled her eyes, already walking to the bedroom. You always make everything a guilt trip. This isn't about you. No, it wasn't. Not yet. The next morning, she left for hair and makeup at 7 a.m. Don't wait up, she said. It'll be a late night. I didn't. Instead, I reviewed the run-of-show file Davis had sent me. Sponsor acknowledgments would happen at exactly 8:40 p.m., right before the Lifetime Achievement Award. A brief speech would follow. They'd given me the option to speak or to remain anonymous. I chose the former. 30 seconds. No podium, just a quiet walk to the mic, a few prepared lines, and back to my seat. I thought about skipping the speech, letting the reveal speak for itself. But no, Dana had spent a year rebranding herself without me. She wasn't just cheating with another man. She was betraying the version of me she used to respect. So, no, I wouldn't stay silent. I'd speak once, briefly, elegantly, and not mention her name at all. By noon, she had already turned the house into a backstage dressing room. Curlers in, silk robes swishing, teeth-whitening strips glinting under bathroom lights. She moved with the precision of someone preparing for a coronation. No music, no idle chatter, just the occasional buzz of her phone on the countertop and the practiced hum she made when doing eyeliner. Like everything in the mirror was a scene she'd played out 100 times. Only this time, she'd edited me out of the script entirely. I leaned against the hallway doorframe, coffee in hand, watching like I was in a museum. Dana was beautiful, yes, but it was the kind of beauty that didn't invite you in. It was curated, defensive, the same way a sculpture impresses but never touches. She wore a black gown with a plunging back and an architectural shoulder that made her look like she'd just stepped off the cover of a business fashion quarterly. She didn't notice me standing there, or maybe she did, and pretended not to. That was her thing, turning absence into punctuation. "You sure you want to go with him?" I asked, voice low. No tone, just a question. She didn't even flinch. "Don't make this about you," she replied, adjusting her earring without looking up. "It's my night." My night. She said it like she'd earned it, like I wasn't the one who paid for half her MBA, moved cities twice for her career, sat through 10 years of networking cocktails and partner dinners where I was introduced as just Julian. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She'd already handed the spotlight to someone else. My role apparently was to stay home and not screw it up. At 5:17 p.m., a black SUV pulled into our driveway. Company car. I saw Warren's silhouette in the back seat. Profile sharp, hair too perfect, the kind of man who wore tailored pity when he shook your hand. Dana didn't linger. She grabbed her clutch, checked her phone one last time, and passed by me like I was a coat rack. "Don't wait up," she muttered, lips already forming her next public smile. The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood alone in the quiet. The scent of her perfume hung in the air like a laugh. I turned back to the kitchen, opened my phone. One unread message from the event coordinator, automated but satisfying. "Your formal announcement as title patron is scheduled for 8:40 p.m. Speech block 30 seconds, balcony access confirmed." I tapped the screen to mark it read. Then I went upstairs and changed. Nothing flashy, no tux, just a navy suit with cufflinks she gave me on our 5th anniversary, back when she still looked at me like I was the wind. The irony wasn't lost on me. The cufflinks had her initials etched on the back. She probably didn't remember. I left through the garage and used the back alley to avoid the car she might have sent to spy on me. Not that she expected me to show up. Why would she? I was the man she'd carefully edited out of her narrative. No threat, no presence, just the soft silence of someone who stayed home. But what she didn't know was that while she was busy selling herself as a self-made icon beside Warren, I was already in the building. The event venue was a glass and steel monstrosity downtown, designed to look futuristic, sterile, expensive, a perfect reflection of the people inside. I showed my digital confirmation at the security gate. No one blinked. The name on my pass was Grant Brook Endowment, not Julian Caldwell. The staff escorted me to a private access elevator. No questions. Balcony right, row B. The view was perfect. I could see the entire red carpet, the main stage, the media pit. Across from me, a giant projector cycled through sponsor logos. Mine was last, white letters on a navy background. Grant Brook Endowment Fund. At 6:42 p.m., Dana's first photo hit Instagram. Her in the black dress, Warren beside her, his hand grazing the small of her back, both smiling like the world had finally aligned. Caption: "Big night. Power team. Elara Awards." I didn't feel rage. That part was dead. What I felt was cold, focused, like a sniper with a slow heartbeat. This wasn't a man watching his wife cheat. This was a man waiting for the perfect time to reintroduce himself, not with noise, but with architecture. At 7:20, the house lights dimmed. The host came on stage in a velvet suit, charming and forgettable, warming the crowd with applause, prompts, and champagne toasts. A violinist performed. Someone received a Youth Leadership Award, all according to the run of show, no deviation. At 8:22, Dana and Warren were escorted to their seats in the front row. I watched as they whispered something to each other. She laughed, tilted her head. He leaned in. It was all so choreographed, so smug. The timer on my phone blinked, 8:37 p.m. 3 minutes until the spotlight turned. 3 minutes until the illusion cracked. I could already see it. Her smile tightening, eyes scanning upward, face frozen in disbelief as she realized the story she thought she was headlining had been funded by the ghost she tried to erase. I sat back in my seat and waited. The first photo landed at 7:03 p.m. Dana, in that black sculpted dress she said cost more than my car's insurance, stood angled perfectly toward the camera. Chin slightly lifted, one leg forward, left hand delicately resting on Warren's chest. His hand was at her waist, barely touching, but enough to imply ownership. The kind of pose people post not to remember a night, but to announce dominance. The caption read, "Power Couple Energy." Elara Awards, Next Gen Finance. Within minutes, the comments flooded in. CEO and his queen. She won the career and the man. I sat in my reserved seat in the balcony, sipping flat, sparkling water, watching the hashtags spread like brush fire. My phone buzzed with every new upload. A few colleagues tagged me, not realizing the irony. "Isn't this your wife's event? Thought you'd be here, man." Oh, I was here, just not where anyone expected. Below me, the red carpet pulsed with camera flashes. Dana glided across it, her face trained in perfect PR smile discipline. She waved, laughed, tossed her hair back like she was starring in a commercial for Triumph. Warren followed, hand always just near enough to suggest a relationship, just far enough to deny one. They looked like a couple who'd carefully rehearsed every frame, who knew exactly what image they wanted to project and exactly what audience they wanted to impress. And above it all, I watched, not bitter, not angry, just clinical. A screen on the opposite wall displayed live sponsor rotation. Grant Brook Endowment Fund cycled in every 10 minutes, the name fading in and out like breath on glass. No one noticed. Not yet. At 8:38, the lights dipped slightly. The host, a man with too much product in his hair, and a game show host grin, walked on stage to polite applause. Dana and Warren had taken their seats near the front. She crossed her legs slowly, smiled at a woman next to her, flipped her hair over one shoulder. The spotlight hit the podium. The host cleared his throat, holding a cue card. "Before we begin tonight's formal awards," he said, voice bright and smooth, "we'd like to take a moment to honor someone whose generosity made this evening possible." I saw Dana's head tilt, slightly. She whispered something to Warren. He nodded, smiled, probably assumed it was some distant billionaire philanthropist here to launder ego through donation. The host continued. "Our presenting sponsor stepped in at a critical moment and helped ensure this year's gala remained not only possible but unforgettable. Their foundation has quietly funded numerous initiatives across the sector. And, while they requested anonymity at first," Dana leaned into Warren again, still smiling, eyes twinkling under the lights, the way she did when she thought she'd already won. "Tonight, they've allowed us to share their name with you." That was the moment. Dana froze, a beat, a flicker, just long enough for a camera to catch her face before it reset, like a crack appearing in ceramic. Her hand twitched against her clutch. "The Elara Future Trust would like to formally recognize the title patron of tonight's gala, the visionary behind the Grant Brook Endowment Fund." The host paused, timed perfectly with the audio cue. Drum roll from the speakers. And then, her husband, Mr. Julian Caldwell. Spotlight, directly on me. It burned through the dark like a surgical strike. Faces turned, heads craned back, phones lifted. I stood slowly, buttoning my jacket, not waving, not smiling, just present, visible. Dana's eyes locked onto mine. That was the moment her smile died. The laughter she'd been performing for the last hour vanished like fog under heat. Her posture stiffened. Warren's hand slid off her lap with instinctive caution. The woman next to her leaned in with a whisper. Dana didn't move, didn't blink. The host, oblivious or perfectly in sync, added, Julian's contribution helped make tonight's entire celebration possible, from venue to outreach. We're honored he's here. A few polite claps turned into real applause. I nodded once, sat down again. Camera flashes peppered the balcony. No one looked at Warren now. Not a single lens cared about the man she came with. And Dana sat paralyzed in her borrowed throne, the queen of a court she thought she'd built, realizing she was just another guest. The man she had dismissed, sidelined, erased, had just made himself inescapable. Not by shouting, not by accusation, just by showing up where she thought I wouldn't and making sure the whole room knew, you forgot me, but I never forgot you. The acoustics in the room were excellent, surgical almost. Every word from the host's mouth sliced through the auditorium like a scalpel. The murmur had barely died down when he continued, voice dipped in dramatic emphasis. Tonight's main sponsor, he said, pacing toward center stage with a practiced pause, is a man who believes in quiet generosity. He's given anonymously in the past. He's supported initiatives behind closed doors, but tonight, another pause, this one tighter, slower. He gave us permission to say his name. I watched Dana's body betray her before her face caught up. Her spine straightened, shoulders locked, smile still on, but her lips curled a millimeter too tight. The corners of her eyes twitched, just enough for someone paying attention to know. She felt it, the shift, the burn behind the spotlight that hadn't hit her yet. Warren leaned in to say something. I could see the casual smugness still on his face, assuming it was some networking contact of his, some old money donor from the club. The host grinned. Please welcome the visionary behind the Grant Brook Endowment Fund. You could feel the temperature drop. Her husband. The collective gasp was cinematic, audible. People actually turned in their chairs to find her, the sound of dozens of heads rotating, dozens of phones being pulled out like weapons. Dana's mouth twitched, her smile now a hostage situation, spotlights repositioned, straight to the balcony, straight to me. I stood slowly, calmly, brushing the creases from my blazer, my face blank. I didn't smile, I didn't raise my hand or wave like a man trying to own the moment. I didn't need to, I was the moment. Below, Dana stared upward, lips parted in a half-second of unguarded confusion, the kind she usually saved for broken glass or unpaid bills. Warren's hand, previously perched like a badge of ownership on the back of her chair, dropped, casually, like he hadn't been caught, but we all saw it, the gesture of a man who suddenly realized his seat was rented, not earned. The audience didn't know what to do. Some clapped reflexively, others whispered, one camera flash, then another, a third. The entire event, orchestrated to feed Dana's image as a woman on the rise, had just been hijacked by the man she'd tried to phase out like obsolete tech. I gave a single nod to the room, then sat. Let the silence hang, let them wonder, let her drown in it. Dana's head slowly turned back to the stage, but not before I caught the exact second her mask shattered. Just behind the eyes, that flicker of terror when the script changes mid-performance and the actor realizes they're no longer the lead. Beside her, Warren stiffened, his hand now firmly planted on his own lap, his jaw clenched. He wasn't holding her anymore. He was distancing, recalculating. The image of the power couple had crumbled into syllables. Her husband. And the best part, I hadn't said a single word. No accusations. Spectacle. No fight. I didn't storm the stage. I didn't drag her down in front of everyone. I simply inserted truth into the same oxygen she'd been breathing, publicly, elegantly, surgically. The MC recovered, to his credit. Let's give one more round of applause to Mr. Caldwell, whose generosity has made this celebration possible. The applause, this time, was louder. I didn't clap. Dana did, because she had to. 3 shallow claps, forced and mechanical. A pageant queen applauding a rival's win. The irony was exquisite. She'd spent the last 6 months curating a version of her life that didn't include me, changed her bio from wife to executive, filtered me out of photos, told friends I was focused on consulting right now, like I was some footnote she'd outgrown. And now her face was on every live stream, every tagged photo, every pressed thumbnail, sitting beside a man who was not her husband while the entire room acknowledged the one who was. The tension didn't come from me announcing myself. It came from everyone realizing they'd been watching the wrong story. The Queenmaker hadn't disappeared. He'd just bought the throne. They gave me a 2-minute window, but I only needed 43 seconds. The stage lights felt warm but not blinding. I didn't rush. I walked up the steps slowly, deliberately. A few people leaned forward as if expecting something dramatic. An awkward moment, maybe a jab, a public reclaiming. They thought I might come for blood. I came for silence. The host handed me the mic with a respectful nod. I didn't look at him. I didn't look at Dana either. She was in the front row, posture stiff as carbon fiber, lips caught in a halfway smile she couldn't afford to let go of. Not with a dozen cameras still rolling. Not with board members in attendance, not with Warren beside her pretending his feet weren't halfway out the door. I scanned the crowd, paused just long enough to let expectation bloom. Then I spoke. Good evening. I am deeply honored to support the Elara Future Trust and the work they continue to do. What you see here tonight, this energy, this purpose, it's what happens when people invest in the future, not just in theory, but in structure, quietly, consistently. Dana didn't blink, but I saw the tightening around her jaw. I continued, thank you to the organizers, the volunteers, and the visionaries in this room. You've made this event not just a ceremony, but a statement. Still no mention of her, no acknowledgement, not even a glance. And then, sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones that don't need a spotlight. They just build it. That one landed. I heard it in the slight gasp from a woman 2 rows back. I saw it in Dana's eyes, how they shifted ever so slightly like a tremor in glass. Her hands folded tightly in her lap now, knuckles pale. I looked directly above her, not at her, never at her. In a world full of noise, I said, pausing one final beat, thank you for noticing the ones who choose action over applause. I stepped away from the mic. The applause came fast, louder than it had any right to be. Gratitude, awe, maybe relief, maybe discomfort. But it didn't matter. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't exposed anything. And yet, somehow, I'd said everything. I made eye contact with the host as I passed him. He leaned slightly toward me, lowered his voice, and muttered, hell of a move. I didn't reply, just kept walking. Back to my seat, back to the balcony, back to the silence I'd chosen from the start. But this time, everyone else had to sit in it too. Down on the floor, Dana smiled stiffly for the photographers. Her public mask was still on, but her eyes betrayed her. They kept darting back to the balcony, to me, not in anger, not in guilt, in confusion. She couldn't figure it out, why I hadn't attacked, why I hadn't made her the villain, why I hadn't said her name. Because for someone like Dana, omission is worse than accusation. Mention her, and she can spin it, make it about bitterness, victimhood. Another man intimidated by her success. But leave her out entirely? That's erasure. That's telling the world she's not even relevant to the story. And that's what cracked her. She built her image on curated importance. Every post, every panel, every gala was about being seen. But now, in a room full of people where she expected to shine the brightest, she was nothing more than an accessory to someone else's legacy. She wasn't even the supporting character. She was uncredited. I didn't speak again for the rest of the night. I didn't need to. The narrative had already changed. She thought she was stepping onto a stage to show off her ascent. Turns out she was just walking into a closing act she didn't write. The donor lounge was quiet, chilled, dimly lit, designed for the elite to whisper without being overheard. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Polite laughter floated like perfume. I stood near the back, just beyond the champagne pyramid, watching the ecosystem of polished egos shuffle around like a designer ant farm. That's when I felt her behind me. Dana's heels clicked across the marble like a warning shot. She didn't stop until she was half a foot from me, voice tight as piano wire. What the hell are you doing here? I turned slowly, glass in hand, not meeting her eyes right away. Enjoying the event, supporting a cause, optics. Her lips parted to argue, but she caught herself. We weren't alone. 3 board members stood a few paces behind her, pretending not to listen. A staff photographer lurked at the edge of a ficus. She tried again, quieter this time. You ambushed me. I finally looked at her. No, Dana, you told me not to come. I respected that. I took a sip and turned slightly to nod toward Warren, who was awkwardly hovering behind her like a bodyguard who'd lost his assignment. Looks like you brought enough support anyway. Warren stepped forward, doing his best, assertive but composed routine. Julian, I think we should all just take a breath. I cut him off without looking. To strong leadership, I said, raising my glass slightly, eyes still on Dana. May it always know who's actually funding the mission. Warren opened his mouth, closed it, stepped back. Dana's mask cracked again, only slightly, but I caught it, a twitch at the corner of her mouth, the tightening of her grip on her clutch. She wasn't panicking yet, but she was sweating inside that $2,000 gown. Right on cue, a young reporter, early 30s, glossy badge holding an iPad like it was a scalpel, approached with a smile. Mr. Caldwell, I'd love to ask you a few questions about the Grant Brook Foundation's long-term plans. Is this a good time? I glanced at Dana, then turned back to the reporter. Would you give us a minute? I said. She has some catching up to do. The reporter glanced at Dana's expression, stoned, but smiled, clearly savoring the awkwardness. Of course. I'll circle back. He walked off, grinning. Dana exhaled through her nose. You think this is funny? I gave a small shrug. No, I think it's accurate. She looked around, scanning for an exit, a witness, a lifeline. You don't get to hijack my night just to make a point. I didn't hijack anything, I said calmly. I donated, I funded, I attended, I stayed quiet. You brought the camera. You know exactly how this looks. Do I? Julian. Her voice was down to a whisper now, laced with desperation. They're talking. Everyone's talking. Good, I said, letting the word land like a stone in water. Maybe now they'll stop thinking you built this alone. She stepped closer, almost chest to chest now, eyes searching my face for the old softness she used to exploit. Why didn't you just talk to me? Talk to you? I said, amused. Dana, you didn't even invite me. That was a mistake. No, I cut in, calm but sharp. It was a choice. Just like the dress. Just like the man you brought. Just like the lies you tell with your smile. A flicker of emotion, anger, shame, something caught in between crossed her face. She glanced back toward Warren, who was pretending to check his phone. A few others had begun to notice. Eyes hovered. Conversations stalled. She hated this. Not the confrontation. She could handle those. What she hated was not being able to control the narrative, to frame it, to spin it. Because right now, in this room, in this moment, she was the question mark. I leaned in, voice low. You built a version of this night where I didn't exist. But the thing about ghosts, Dana, sometimes they haunt rooms exactly when they're supposed to. She blinked. Just once, no comeback, no script. Just air slipping through her teeth. I stepped past her, slow and deliberate, brushing against her shoulder like punctuation, and behind me I heard the faintest click of another photo being taken. No flash, just a lens capturing the exact moment a queen realized the court was no longer hers. The whispers began before the champagne had gone flat. By sunrise, screenshots were already making the rounds. Not of me, not even of my speech, but of her. Dana, frozen in that second of recognition, jaw slightly open, eyes locked on the balcony, every part of her trying to remain polished, while her entire narrative cracked mid-smile. Someone slowed the clip down and posted it with the caption, "When the husband steps into frame, and you remember you had one." Within hours, it had over 100,000 views. LinkedIn posts disguised as business insights started popping up. Why authentic partnerships matter, a reflection on the Alara Gala. Leadership, loyalty, and lessons from a surprising sponsor reveal. You know the type. Half self-promotion, half public dissection, and entirely designed to go viral in corporate group chats. The real explosion came from the photos. One in particular, Dana and Warren on the red carpet, her hand flat on his chest, both laughing, eyes locked. But now, under a different caption, wait, wasn't that her husband the sponsor? By noon, it was everywhere. She tried to get ahead of it, of course, posted a blurry behind-the-scenes photo with a generic caption, grateful for last night's incredible event, honored to celebrate with friends and colleagues, leadership power, gratitude, Elara awards, as if she hadn't spent the night pretending I didn't exist. But the comments didn't follow her lead. Did you really not know who the sponsor was? Was that your boss in the photo? Your husband made a hell of a speech. Why didn't you thank him? Awkward night or power move of the year? Asking for a friend? Even worse, some of the finance bloggers picked it up. One posted a breakdown. Wife brings boss's date to awards gala. Husband turns out to be anonymous title sponsor. Wife learns live on stage. I've never seen passive-aggressive vengeance so elegant. People ate it up because people love a beautiful disaster, especially when it wears designer guilt and pretends it didn't see the storm coming. And Dana, she spun. First came the frantic text to mutual friends, trying to explain it was miscommunication, that she didn't know Julian was even attending, that the +1 decision was purely strategic. The same friends who once toasted her independence were now quietly forwarding her excuses to me with dry commentary like damage control in aisle 5. Then came the board. 2 directors from her firm placed informal calls to Warren, wanted clarity on the nature of their executive alignment, whatever the hell that meant. HR flagged 2 of the photos for review, particularly the one where her hand was resting on his stomach, wedding ring fully visible. Funny thing about optics, once the lighting changes, people start noticing the parts you edited out. Meanwhile, I was busy, not gloating, not even speaking, just placing a quiet little full-page ad in the upcoming Sunday edition of the Business Tribune. Black and white, classy, minimal, a clean header. To those who build the future quietly. Beneath it, a list of thank yous to the volunteers, to Elara's board, to the production team. A line about believing in infrastructure over ego, progress over publicity. And at the bottom, in small print, in service, always, Mr. Dana Caldwell. I didn't sign Julian. That would have been too expected. Mr. Dana Caldwell. Let that echo. Because for years, I was Julian Dana's husband. Julian, oh right, he does consulting or something. Julian, he's supportive, isn't he? Now, she was the one with the modifier. By Monday morning, I got a call from a client in New York. Caldwell, he said laughing. Was that you at the Elara thing? Jesus Christ, that was some Bond villain patience. I didn't know you had that in you. Neither did she, and as far as Dana was concerned, she was still drowning in narratives she didn't write, trying to scrub away lipstick smudges from stories that were now bigger than her. She thought she could control the room, but now the room controlled her. Monday morning arrived with surgical precision. Dana returned to the office, heels clicking with just enough force to signal control, but not so hard as to echo desperation. Her makeup was flawless, but even in photos, you could tell it was armor. The war had already started. She just hadn't accepted the casualty count yet. The security badge still let her in, but the energy didn't. Her assistant, usually a chirpy buffer of curated calm, avoided eye contact. The receptionist gave a tight smile but didn't buzz her through. Dana had to tap her badge twice before the door clicked open. And the moment she entered the executive lounge, the silence said more than words ever could. Her chair, her custom leather name-engraved executive chair, was gone. In its place was a standard office chair, wheels slightly squeaky, no plaque, no pretense. Her nameplate from the glass wall had been removed entirely, just a smudge where the adhesive used to be. She blinked, stared at it like maybe it was an oversight, like maybe it would reappear if she squinted hard enough. It didn't. She didn't ask. She knew better. Warren's office was dark, locked. A printed sign on the door read, "On leave, direct all inquiries to interim operations." Not even his name. That was the first real confirmation she got. He wasn't just out sick. He wasn't in a meeting. He had been removed, delicately, diplomatically, but undeniably. Words like advised and temporarily floated around the floor, but they were air freshener language. Everyone could still smell the fire. It wasn't just the sponsor stunt. It was the fallout. It was the questions about judgment. The HR complaints surfacing from 3 female interns who suddenly remembered moments with Warren that didn't feel quite right. The late-night travel arrangements, the hotel billing discrepancies, the fact that one of the event donors had been blindsided by their proximity on the red carpet. The board didn't like surprises, especially not the kind that went viral. By 11:30 a.m., Dana was invited to join a closed-door conversation with HR and 2 board members. The language was soft, but the message was granite. We value your contributions. We believe in your potential. We're simply suggesting you take a moment to reflect. She wasn't fired. That would have been too loud. Instead, they gave her a window, an opportunity to reconsider her alignment with the company's values before further public perception complicates future positioning. A corporate pause, a strategic breath, a chairless exile. She emerged from the meeting pale but upright, clutching a folder of transition resources and a sealed envelope marked optional severance terms. Her office hadn't been cleared out yet, but her Slack account showed fewer channels. Her calendar suddenly had wide blocks of empty space. A few meetings disappeared mid-scroll. One colleague, previously friendly, didn't make eye contact when they passed her in the hallway. She tried to call Warren. Straight to voicemail. She tried texting me. Nothing. And then, around 8:14 p.m., I got the email. Subject: we need to talk. No greeting, no apology, no explanation. Just that sentence, dropped like bait. I didn't open it right away. I finished my drink first. A quiet pour of scotch in my office, jazz playing low in the background. The framed photo from the gala, the one with her caught mid-reaction, sat beside my monitor. I wasn't admiring it, I was studying it. The moment of unmasking. The instant she realized she wasn't just being watched, she was being outed by the man she'd decided was too soft to matter. I clicked the email, read it once, archived it, no reply, no questions, no gloating, just silence. Because when someone finally realizes they've burned the bridge they used to walk on, there's no point shouting from the other side. Let them stand in the smoke. Let them explain the missing chair. Let them spin the absence. Because now, the silence was mine, and it was louder than anything she could say. 2 weeks later, it arrived in the mail. Finance Forward, a glossy, smug little magazine that lives for cover stories about capital raises, women in leadership, and exclusive soirees disguised as charity. I hadn't subscribed in years, but apparently someone thought I'd want a copy. They were right. The headline read, "The Gala, the Gift, and the Ghost in the Balcony." It was supposed to be a puff piece, another self-congratulatory recap of the Alara Awards. But halfway down page 12, tucked between interviews with junior analysts pretending to be visionaries, there it was. The photo. Dana, caught mid-laugh, her hand splayed delicately across Warren's chest, claiming, branding. Her lips still parted in amusement. The joke had just landed, or maybe she thought she was the joke. But the rest of her face hadn't kept up. Her eyes, wide, locked, uncertain, frozen in that split second when my name was announced, and her entire illusion cracked, not just in her mind, but in front of everyone with a camera, a memory, or a headline to write. They caught it perfectly, not posed, not filtered, just raw disbelief in designer heels. The caption underneath was cruel in its elegance. When the power behind the scenes steps into the light. No other details, no explanation, no scandalous footnote, just implication. The readers didn't need context. By now, they'd read the threads, watched the clip, heard the buzz. They knew, or thought they did, which was even better. Let them fill in the blanks. That's how legends stick. I tore the page out, took it to a frame shop 2 blocks from my house, told the guy I wanted it minimalist. No glare, no matting, just the moment preserved. It hangs in my study now, not because I want to remember her, but because I want to remember me, the man she tried to make disappear, the one she thought was content to be edited out, footnoted, backgrounded, and the man who waited, not with rage, but with patience. Underneath the photo, etched into a slim brass plaque, are 3 words. Timing is everything. Because it was. She wanted the night. She got it. She wanted the narrative. I gave her silence. She wanted the audience. So I let them see, and now, no matter how hard she scrubs, spins, or starts over, that photo will always live somewhere, hanging in my home, floating online, archived in some corporate gallery, a permanent artifact of the night she stopped being the story and became part of someone else's, mine. And the best part, I never said a word about what she did, never exposed the text, never released the receipts, never told the world who she'd become when the lights were off, because I didn't need to. The picture said enough.